This is CNN Breaking News.
This is GPS, the global public square. Welcome to our viewers in the United States and around the world. I'm Jim Sciutto in today for Fareed Zakaria, and we begin today with some breaking news. Northern Californian residents had a rude awakening early this morning. A 6.1 magnitude earthquake hitting 6 miles south of Napa. That's just north of San Francisco, putting 15,000 people at the center of violent tremors. It is the single largest seismic event in California since that 1989 quake that struck during the World Series 25 years ago. Local rescue officials continue to survey the region for damage. The early reports so far: homes rocked askew, thousands of people without power, streets buckling, storefronts crumbling. One hospital telling us just a few moments ago that they have treated 70 patients so far. None of those injuries, though, life-threatening. And structural fires burning across towns dotting the Napa Valley. With the potential as well for gas leaks, local law enforcement officials are rushing to free some people who are trapped at this moment in their homes. So far, luckily, no casualties, no deaths have been reported, but it will still be a while before we know just how much damage this quake has done. California's Governor Jerry Brown just moments ago issued a statement urging residents to stay calm and assuring them, quote, public safety officials are doing all they can to help residents and those living in the affected areas should follow their guidance and instruction. Now, geologists say that more than 100,000 people felt very strong shaking, the earth literally moving beneath their feet. I want to go now to Jennifer Gray in CNN Severe Weather Center in Atlanta. Jennifer, quake 6.1 on the Richter scale. Can you tell our viewers exactly where this struck and how far around that epicenter this was felt?
Yeah, it was about 6 miles south of Napa, and folks felt it anywhere from 25 to 30 miles away. And so we are continuing to feel those aftershocks as well. Most of those have been very, very minor, but we did have one of about 2.5 a couple of hours ago, and just in the past hour or so, we had another one of about 3.6. And so in the next 24 hours, that's a crucial time, but in the next 7 days, and aftershocks can be felt days, weeks, even months down the road. But the next 7 days is really the most crucial time for these aftershocks, and the probability of a magnitude 5.0 or higher is about 54% with an earthquake of this size. And then earthquakes larger than a main shock is less than 10%. And so 54% of an aftershock of about 5.0 or greater in the next 7 days, 54%. And so those aftershocks are a concern as we move forward in time. Of course, most of those are going to be very, very small, but just take care and use caution when you're going out in the streets. Now that the sun is up, it is still early over on the West Coast. Some of those structures are going to be very, very weak. And so as you're assessing all of that damage and folks are out moving about, just be careful. Of course, those aftershocks still a possibility over the next couple of days and even weeks, Jim.
Now, Jennifer, anytime a quake like this strikes close to the ocean, to the coastline, concerns, of course, about tsunami warnings. Are there any warnings yet, or is that danger past?
Yeah, the danger's past. There were no tsunami watches or warnings that were issued, so that was very, very good news with this particular quake.
That is a relief for sure. Thanks very much to Jennifer Gray in Atlanta. We'll be staying in touch with you throughout the day. We're still piecing together just how bad the damage is in and around Napa. A reminder, that's just north of San Francisco. But things could very well get worse. About 30 minutes after the initial quake hit, an aftershock ripped through the area, shaking the Napa region again. I want to bring in CNN producer Augie Martin. He is in San Francisco. Augie, from the ground, what have you seen? What have you heard on the ground there?
Well, Jim, with daybreak about 30 minutes ago, the light ought to help authorities with their efforts to survey the damage and try to rescue those that are trapped. I'm actually in San Francisco proper, about 25 miles south of the epicenter, but it was a fairly good shakedown here that lasted for about 25 or 30 seconds. It was a softer rolling type earthquake. Sometimes we get these very sharp jolts, but this was one of those earthquakes that, while powerful, was more of a rolling type of earthquake. It was felt over a very widespread area. Some earthquakes are felt not over a very wide area, typically because they're deeper, but this one was felt over a very wide area, all the way down to San Jose and even south of there. This did take place up in Napa on a fault that was not the San Andreas fault, which is the one that typically gets all of the publicity, but in famed wine country. So,
Augie, just telling our viewers, we're playing live pictures from the quake area today. We're seeing a house on fire there. This is a great concern for firefighters because of gas leaks, etc. For our viewers who haven't felt an earthquake before, I wonder, Augie, if you could describe that motion, that sense of the earth rocking in waves. How did it feel when you went through this just a short time ago?
Well, typically, as I said, there are two sort of types of earthquakes. There's one that gives off a very sharp, jarring jolt, and then there are other ones that are almost wave-like, that are softer and have a rolling feeling to them. And some of it will depend upon what type of earth surface you're on, whether you're on sand or bedrock. In Napa, a lot of the ground there is sandy based, that used to be part of San Francisco Bay, many millions of years ago. In San Francisco, a lot of us are on bedrock, some of us are on sand, but like I said, this one was a very rolling, if it's possible to call it a gentle earthquake. In some regards, it was a strong but gentle earthquake. It was not at least where I was, it wasn't a super jarring jolt. Nonetheless, it's very startling, especially when it happens in the middle of the night. Even to native Californians, it's always very jarring when you're awakened by shaking. So,
no question, it's an unnerving feeling for anyone who's been through it. Thanks very much to Augie Martin, CNN producer on the ground in San Francisco. A reminder to our viewers, you're seeing live pictures now from the San Francisco area, the aftermath of this 6.1 earthquake which struck in Napa Valley just north of San Francisco. We want to get some perspective now on the size of this earthquake, its impact. Joining me now on the telephone, seismologist as well as director of the Global Alliance for Disaster Reduction. That's Walter Hayes. Walter Hayes, can you put for our viewers this quake into context in terms of size? It's 25 years ago since a 6.9 earthquake caused so much damage in San Francisco. This is 6.1. On the Richter scale, that means nearly 10 times or so, or 1/10 the power of the one that struck in '89?
No, that's the confusion on the geometrical aspect of this. It's nearly 30 times weaker. It's 1/30th of the Loma Prieta earthquake.
That's right, because it's both amplitude and energy. So it's 30th of the energy, but it's also then the amplitude, which I guess is the wave motion of the quake. Is that right? The shaking, the ground shaking?
Yeah, well, they use the waves to determine the magnitude number, but the magnitude number is a measure of energy released. The Loma Prieta released nearly 30 times more energy than this one. It would take 30 of these to equal one Loma Prieta, for example.
Now, as we look at this, though, this is still caused, and again, we're seeing live pictures, walls that have collapsed. There are homes on fire. That is still, even at 6.1, and I believe we're just getting an update now that the estimate has been lowered to 6.0. But this is still a large earthquake. You only have 100 or so, some odd 6.0 or higher earthquakes per year.
That's right, around the world. You got 1 magnitude 8, 10 sevens, 100 sixes, 1,000 fives, and so on down the line. So we get 10 million a year, all of these different sizes. California doesn't always get its share of them. Some other parts of the world get the share. But this is still 30. It would take 30 of these to equal a Loma Prieta earthquake.
Well, again, we're just seeing the power of it now on the air as we look at live pictures. Walls collapsed, some buildings partially collapsed, fires in the Napa area now.
What Augie was talking about was the Rayleigh wave, the long period wave that gives that rolling motion. The jolt is the P wave. That's the one that causes interior damage, contents to fall all over. The Rayleigh wave would be more destructive to the taller buildings and the weaker buildings, long period.
Let me ask you just very quickly before I let you go. There's a lot of talk of the Ring of Fire. This is the plate that surrounds the Pacific and connects earthquakes and volcanoes in Japan, New Zealand, Chile. We've had very big quakes in recent years in all those places. Does that increase the chances of a major earthquake, the big one, in the San Francisco area in the near term?
Well, it takes time for the strain energy to accumulate. Now, California has had plenty of time for it to accumulate, more likely in Southern California than in Northern California, but don't ever rule out any place. Northern California, 1906, of course, was the big one there. 1847, the big one in the Los Angeles area. But you got plenty of faults. You got literally thousands, several thousand faults in California. And the Hollister Fault is where this earthquake in that region, and it's more damaging to the city at large than the San Andreas, even though the San Andreas is going to generate bigger earthquakes. San Andreas is farther away from the Bay Area. And this one is right there, and that's the reason it's so got everybody's attention.
Okay, Walter Hayes, seismologist, thanks very much for helping put this into context. Again, you're seeing live pictures of the aftermath of this earthquake. We're going to hear more on the latest in Napa in just a few moments. But coming up on GPS, the U.S. is weighing